The alarm shatters the silence at 5:30 a.m. Within seconds, you're reaching for your phone, checking emails before your eyes have fully opened. The blue light burns your retinas as you scan through messages, mentally calculating how to compress an impossible number of tasks into the coming day. 20 minutes later, you're gulping down scalding coffee while simultaneously making lunches, responding to texts, and planning your morning commute. Your heart rate is already elevated, cortisol flooding your system as traffic reports warn of delays. By the time you actually leave the house, you've been awake for just 90 minutes, but your body is already operating as if you're running from a predator. This isn't just a morning, it's a daily emergency, and it's silently destroying your health. This relentless morning rush has become so normalized in American culture that we rarely question it. We celebrate the hustle, wear our busyness like a badge of honor, and convince ourselves that maximum productivity equals success. What few people realize is that this chronic morning acceleration is triggering a cascading series of biological processes that fundamentally undermine your health, productivity, and even longevity. The science is clear. The way you spend your morning hours is quite literally determining your risk of chronic disease, cognitive decline, and premature aging. Researchers at the Harvard Medical School have documented how rushed mornings trigger what they call perpetual stress response, state where your sympathetic nervous system remains chronically activated, flooding your body with stress hormones that were never meant to be sustained at elevated levels. Dr. Robert Sapolsky, a neuroendocrinologist at Stanford University, has spent decades studying how this perpetual stress state affects human biology. His research reveals a disturbing truth. Consistently elevated morning cortisol levels are directly linked to accelerated brain aging, compromised immune function, and increased risk of cardiovascular disease. The consequences extend far beyond just feeling stressed. A groundbreaking study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association tracked over 3,000 adults for 8 years, examining the relationship between morning routines and cardiovascular health. The results were stunning. Individuals who consistently experienced rushed, high-stress mornings showed a 37% higher incidence of hypertension and a 59% increase in inflammatory markers associated with heart disease, regardless of other lifestyle factors. In other words, even if you eat well, exercise regularly, and get adequate sleep, a chronically rushed morning can single-handedly undermine these healthy habits. Perhaps most alarming is what's happening to your brain. Neuroscientists at UCLA's Brain Research Institute have used advanced imaging techniques to examine the effects of chronic morning stress on brain structure. The findings are sobering. Participants with consistently hurried morning routines showed measurable thinning in the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for decision-making, emotional regulation, and executive function. This wasn't just a correlation. Follow-up studies demonstrated that adopting slower morning routines for just 3 weeks began reversing this damage, suggesting a direct causal relationship. The damage extends to your metabolic health as well. When you rush in the morning, 2 critical processes are disrupted. First, your body's natural cortisol awakening response, a healthy spike in cortisol that should occur 30-45 minutes after waking, becomes blunted. This disruption has been linked to increased insulin resistance over time, essentially priming your body for metabolic dysfunction. Second, rushing through breakfast, or skipping it entirely, while in a stress state, fundamentally alters how your body processes nutrients. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that identical meals consumed in a stressed versus relaxed state produced dramatically different metabolic responses, with the stressed condition resulting in higher blood glucose spikes and slower returns to baseline. If these health consequences sound alarming, consider the cognitive impact. A series of experiments conducted at Princeton University's Neuroscience Institute revealed that subjects who began their day with just 10 minutes of rushing experienced a 47% decrease in cognitive flexibility and a 39% reduction in creative problem-solving ability that persisted for up to 6 hours. Your capacity to generate innovative solutions, see nuance, and make wise decisions is being systematically undermined by the simple act of rushing through your morning. Societal costs are equally staggering. Economists at the Brookings Institution estimate that stress-related productivity losses cost American businesses over $300 billion annually, with morning rush being identified as one of the primary triggers. Medical researchers have calculated that the health complications arising from chronic morning stress contribute approximately $189 billion to annual healthcare expenditures in the United States. These aren't just abstract numbers. They represent real human suffering, compromised potential, and shortened lives. What makes the situation particularly tragic is that the alternative, what researchers call intentional morning pacing, yields such profound benefits for such a relatively small adjustment. Dr. Sarah Mednick, a cognitive neuroscientist at the University of California, has conducted extensive research on the biological impact of slower morning routines. Her work demonstrates that individuals who adopt even modestly paced mornings show remarkably different physiological patterns. lower inflammatory markers, improved glucose metabolism, enhanced cognitive performance, and significantly higher emotional resilience. The transformation begins with understanding what's actually happening in your body during those critical morning hours. When you first wake up, your brain is in a unique transitional state between sleep and full alertness. This period, what neuroscientists call the hypnopompic state, is characterized by high theta wave activity, associated with heightened suggestibility and receptivity. What you expose yourself to during this period disproportionately influences your neural and emotional patterns for the entire day. When you immediately flood this sensitive state with stressors, alerts, and demands, you're essentially programming your brain for hypervigilance and reactivity. So what exactly does a slow morning look like in practical terms, and why is it so biologically powerful? The science points to several key components that create what researchers call the parasympathetic advantage, a physiological state that primes your body and brain for optimal functioning throughout the day. The first element is what chronobiologists call transition buffering, allowing your body to move gradually from sleep to activity. When you jolt awake to an alarm and immediately begin engaging with stressors, you force your body to bypass critical hormonal adjustments. Dr. Russell Foster, a circadian neuroscientist at Oxford University, has documented how this abrupt transition creates a hormonal cascade that resembles a fight or flight response. In contrast, allowing yourself even 5 to 10 minutes of gentle awakening creates a fundamentally different biochemical environment, triggering the release of regulatory hormones that modulate stress responses throughout the day. A landmark study conducted at Johns Hopkins University demonstrated that participants who spent the first 15 minutes after waking in a low-stimulation environment, simply sitting quietly, gently stretching, or practicing deep breathing, showed remarkable differences in their biomarkers compared to those who immediately engaged with emails or news. The buffer group maintained healthier cortisol rhythms, showed 27% better glucose regulation, and reported 38% higher scores on measures of emotional equilibrium. Even more surprising was the productivity impact. Despite losing 15 minutes of active time, the buffer group consistently accomplished more throughout the day and made fewer errors on cognitive tasks. The second component involves hydration and nutrition timing. When you rush through your morning, you typically either skip breakfast entirely or consume it in a stressed state while multitasking. Nutritional biochemists at Cornell University have demonstrated that the same meal consumed under different conditions produces dramatically different metabolic responses. When participants ate a standardized breakfast while rushing and multitasking, their insulin response was 39% higher than when they ate the identical meal while sitting calmly and focusing only on eating. This exaggerated insulin response sets up a blood sugar roller coaster that affects energy and cognitive function for hours afterward. The solution is surprisingly simple. Consume 16 ounces of water within 10 minutes of waking, then wait 30-45 minutes before having your first meal, consuming it in a calm, focused state. This pattern allows your digestive system to activate properly and ensures that the nutrients you consume are processed optimally. Dr. Rhonda Patrick, a biomedical scientist specializing in nutritional health, explains that this simple adjustment can improve metabolic function by up to 27%, while simultaneously enhancing mental clarity. Perhaps the most powerful element of slow mornings is what neuroscientists call attentional anchoring, deliberately choosing what your brain focuses on during those first waking hours. Psychologist Dr. Amishi Jha, who studies the neuroscience of attention at the University of Miami, has shown that the information you consume in the first hour after waking has a disproportionate impact on your attentional patterns for the remainder of the day. Her research revealed that subjects who consumed negative or high-stress information, like checking work emails or watching the news, within the first hour of waking, were significantly more likely to notice and remember negative information throughout the day, a phenomenon she calls attentional contagion. The practical application is straightforward. Reserve the first 30-60 minutes after waking for inputs that create your desired mental state. This doesn't mean burying your head in the sand, it simply means being intentional about the sequence of your information consumption. Whether it's reading material that inspires you, gentle movement that awakens your body, or simply sitting quietly with your thoughts, this deliberate attentional anchoring sets a powerful template for your brain's filtering systems. I want to speak directly to you watching this right now. Have you noticed how your mornings set the tone for your entire day? That when you rush through them, everything that follows seems to unfold in that same frantic energy? What would happen if tomorrow morning you simply set your alarm 20 minutes earlier than usual, not to do more, but to move more slowly through what you already do? The science suggests this small shift could dramatically change how you experience the remaining 23 hours and 40 minutes of your day. If you're finding value in understanding how these subtle daily patterns affect your health and well-being, consider subscribing to this channel. Unlike most health content that focuses on supplements, diets, or exercise routines, we dive deep into the often overlooked behavioral patterns that powerfully shape your biology. The comment section below is open for your experiences. Have you ever practiced intentional slow mornings? What differences did you notice? Your story might inspire others to experiment with this transformative practice. Light exposure is another critical element of an effective slow morning. Chronobiologists at the University of Colorado have demonstrated that exposure to natural morning light for just 5 to 10 minutes significantly improves circadian rhythm regulation. The research showed that individuals who received adequate morning sunlight experienced more consistent energy levels throughout the day and fell asleep an average of 48 minutes earlier than those who remained in artificial indoor lighting. The mechanism is fascinating. Morning sunlight contains specific blue light wavelengths that trigger the suppression of melatonin, the sleep hormone, while simultaneously helping set your body's internal clock. This natural light exposure costs nothing, yet provides benefits that no supplement or medication can replicate. Movement patterns during your morning hours create another powerful biological signal. Exercise. Physiologists at the University of California have documented how different types of morning movement affect hormonal cascades throughout the day. The research found that intense high-stress exercise immediately upon waking actually compounds the stress response in many individuals. In contrast, gentle, mindful movement for just 5-7 minutes, such as light stretching, tai chi, or a slow walk, activates muscle tissue sufficiently to enhance blood circulation and brain oxygenation without triggering a major stress response. This type of movement has been shown to increase BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that enhances neural plasticity and cognitive function. The benefits of slow mornings extend far beyond the individual. Organizational psychologists at Harvard Business School studied the impact of morning routines on leadership effectiveness. They found that executives who practiced intentional slow mornings made decisions with 23% more accuracy, demonstrated 31% greater emotional intelligence in team interactions, and reported significantly higher job satisfaction than their rushing counterparts. Most telling was the impact on their teams. Employees working under leaders who practiced slow mornings reported feeling 44% more valued and demonstrated 29% higher engagement scores. The implications for family dynamics are equally profound. Dr. William Doherty, a family therapist and researcher at the University of Minnesota, has documented how rushed mornings create what he calls emotional spillover, the transfer of stress and negative affect between family members. His studies show that households that implement even modestly slower morning routines experience significant improvements in relationship quality, with children showing improved academic performance and adults reporting greater relationship satisfaction. The mechanism seems straightforward. When we're not rushing, we have the attentional capacity to actually see and respond to one another as humans rather than obstacles or tasks. Adopting a slow morning practice doesn't require massive life restructuring. Start with just 15 minutes. Set your alarm that much earlier than usual, not to do more, but to do everything more slowly. Notice the sensations of waking, hydrate mindfully, expose yourself to natural light if possible, and engage in gentle movement. Be intentional about your first informational inputs. These small adjustments cost nothing, but can fundamentally transform your neurological and metabolic functioning. What might your life look like if you reclaimed your mornings from the rush? What version of yourself might emerge if you allowed your biology to function as it was designed? The most profound changes often don't come from adding complex new routines or radical interventions, but simply from removing the unnecessary acceleration that has become so normalized we've stopped questioning it. Your morning isn't just the start of your day, it's the foundation upon which everything else is built. The question is, what kind of foundation are you laying?